my friend. My name is PEtrovick, and for the past 25 years, I've been teaching, coaching, and training people how to create a better quality of life, primarily in the network marketing profession. You know, today I've created a lifestyle that most people can only dream about, but I have to tell you, it hasn't always been that way. I've certainly had my ups and downs, and I've come to realize that success and prosperity have a lot to do with our philosophies, our programming at the conscious and even unconscious levels. And the truth is that from time to time, we all need to reach out to people who are where we want to be. A great question I ask people often is, why is it that some people have massive success while you or others might be struggling? You might be stuck. Well, I've created a series, and the series is called Prosperity and the Mentors. And what I've done is I've gotten some of the best people around the world, some of the most successful, prosperous, abundant people who've created a lifestyle that is at the top half of 1% of the people on the planet. I mean, just really high quality, amazing people. Now, my intention here is to take you behind the curtain so that you can kind of learn a little bit about their habits, their tools, their philosophies, how they handle the challenging times, and what they did to create the success and the prosperity that they've actually created in their life. Now, my guest today is a graduate from Angelo State University in Texas. She's got a double degree in business administration and kinesiology, but her career took a sharp turn when she became a top distributor of her network marketing company and just created massive success. Well, today she's got vast experience of our industry, and her in the trenches experience has really equipped her to really help single parents, stay-at-home moms create the quality of life that they want around their family. And she has a very unique way of making the complex sound simple, and how to bring products to the marketplace, which at the end of the day, our compensation is based on our ability to bring people and products into our products and opportunity. Well, she's developed some amazing trainings. She's worked with multinational companies all over the world, and she really has a passion for women, especially moms. Why? Well, she's got 3 beautiful daughters, and that's kind of her story, and that's kind of who she is. Her husband, Larry's been named Architect of Wealth Building by the Wall Street Journal and has been in the industry for well over 50 years. And together they've launched Wealth Building Academy. And what that does is it leverages technology to help people like you and I leverage ourselves, our tools, our team, so that we can create a duplicatable system for success. My guest today is the loved and adored international superstar, Taylor Thompson. Taylor, thanks so much for being here today.
Hey, so excited to be here with you. This is awesome. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me, Terry. I feel very humbled and honored to be here.
Oh, you're very kind. Let's just jump right in. Share a little bit about your story, Taylor. Take us kind of like behind the curtain and how you were able to create the life that you've created, because it's pretty amazing right now.
Well, thank you. And it has been an incredible journey as we go through. I'm still going through the journey. I haven't arrived. I don't think anybody ever arrives, right? But I started out in this industry. I mean, people call it profession. I call it industry, but I started out with not ever thinking I could be a leader or a top earner. That was never the goal. That was never the thing for me. What really drove me was, as you said, I did graduate from college, and I had high aspirations to be in business for myself. But after I found myself with a brand new baby, as most moms would probably agree, the things that you thought were important are no longer as significant as they once were, And I don't know if dads really feel that way, but I can just speak for moms that, our whole mindset shifts, this a paradigm shift that takes place. And so for me, I was wanting the proverbial mom care versus daycare. And I was looking for something I could do from home that I could make an extra $800 a month. And that was, to me, that was equivalent to me working full time and then paying for daycare. So if I could net $800, that's where my break even point was. And that was my contribution that I wanted to make to my family. And so I tried a lot of crazy things. Now you have to understand that I go back 25 plus years before internet, before cell phones, before social media, before any of these great technologies that a lot of people have today that they can take advantage of and leverage. I didn't have those things. And so I was answering ads in the newspaper, where ads were, work from home, stuff envelopes. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Some people maybe listening has no clue what that looks like. But I tried a lot of different things, stuffing envelopes and, sent off for this work from home kit and in between all of these things that weren't working that I was paying money for to get these things in the mail to make money from, only to find out it was a scam or whatever. I was answering other ads, and in the midst of answering these ads, they happened to be, and I don't know if I can mention any names of companies here, but I guess I'll keep it generic. But it's, I answered this ad of this health and nutrition company, and I was like, I'm not interested in that. I don't want to sell anything. Famous last words for most networkers. I don't want to sell anything, and I'm not interested. And so I went through these, it's interesting is that whenever you go through something or whenever you have experiences, and as going through all these negative experiences of having this and that not working and this and that not working, how your perception starts to change. And how you start to see things from different perspectives as you walk through the process. And so that's exactly what happened for me. And after being exposed to this health and nutrition ad, it was like the fourth time I'd answered this same ad, same company, same product. But there was something that different that took place for me. And that's really where my journey really took off. And that was is that they told me a story. They told me a story about a couple that lived. Now, I'm a West Texas girl, born and raised here in Texas, West Texas, bred. And so where I lived in this town, I lived in the panhandle of Texas, and there was this little bitty town of about 15,000 people not very far from me that this couple was making $10,000 a month. Now, keep in mind, I never thought for a minute that this little stay-at-home mom who had no networking experience or anything like that. But what happened for me is that I started to believe, wow, if somebody from a little town not very far from me could make $10,000 a month, surely I could make $800. And that's where that's where the shift comes in. And that's that believability and storytelling has been so integral for me in building and growing a business around my family. And that's how I got started. My very first month, it was so amazing. I made 3 times what my goal was my very first month. I broke a lot of sales records. They were, my second month in the business, they were like, oh, well, if you do $10,000 in business, you get to go and you get to see the owner of the company and get your picture made with them. And I was like, okay, I didn't know that was a lot, right? Now we're talking about personal sales. We're not talking about group. At that time, in my era, that was personal business. I didn't know that wasn't a lot. I not only did that, I did over 15,000 in personal sales. Wow. That month to qualify. And so, but I didn't think there was anything special about what was happening for me. And I share that just because, sometimes, when you're getting started in this kind of business, I always say we're ignorance on fire. We don't know anything other than we're just excited and we've got something that we want to share with people. And unfortunately, that's, as you grow in this business and then you become more educated and then you know everything there is to know, right? And you start to slow down because you start telling everybody everything that you know, right? And for, you might sell them in the first 5 minutes and then come back in the next, 10 minutes and buy it right back. And so So I guess for me, I was very fortunate to be in a learning teaching environment that I call it the incubator process, that allowed for somebody like me with no experience to be able to be reared up and to be cultivated and to have an environment that I could grow and I could become more. And that's exactly what happened for me, Terry. I mean, and I feel so privileged and honored. I think that's really where I really got my passion to really get other women, especially moms out there, to know that if I can do it, you can do it. And that's really, whenever Larry and I talk, that's always been our mantra, is that, he considers himself the long-haired hippie construction worker, but I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm just a single mom of 3. And that's really the message that that we've stuck with and that I adhere to, because all the other things and all the other positives really mean nothing at the end of the day to the person that you're talking to if they can't believe that they can do it too. Yeah. So that's, you know what I'm saying? I mean, so that's really how I got started, and that's really what happened for me. And I continued to grow this business as a stay-at-home mom, but ultimately ended up building and continuing this business as a single mom. And so I know what it's like to build a business around negative household and a negative spouse, and to go through a divorce and to go through a really ugly divorce and a custody battles and still be able to keep your thinking straight and your mindset straight and to grow under a lot of adverse situations. So I know that if I can go through all of that and grow and build, that whoever out there, whatever mom is out there, they can do it too.
Absolutely. Well, that's an amazing and very inspiring story. Thanks for sharing that. If you could define what the word prosperity or abundance means to you today, what definition would you give it, Taylor?
Well, I mean, it's very interesting, because I think that, for me, the more money that I've made over my lifetime, that definition has definitely changed. And because at the end of the day, the money is only the result, and it's only the result, and it's only a measuring stick as to how many people you've served. And so whenever you look at it like that, I think it changes the perspective, because you know what I mean? Like, I mean, if money's not everything until it's everything. I mean, and what I mean by that is it's not everything until there's not enough month at the end of the money, right? And so until that bridge is crossed, until that line is delineated, what you perceive as being prosperous can't change, because until the basic needs are met, until the basic bills are covered, it's hard to think outside of those the basic necessities. So, I mean, as I've grown in this process, but it still goes back to my original goal, right? The original desire, which was $800 mom care versus daycare. And I think ultimately that to me is the prosperity, because whenever I look back and I'm able to reflect, and I'm able to see that, my daughters now, 25, 22, and 20, that I've always been able to be the mom care versus daycare, the mom that's been there no matter what, and being able to keep my priority as a mom. You were asking me about my daughter, who, she's gone through, my 22-year-old daughter, she's gone through a major health crisis over the last 90 days. And we've been in contact through that process, and I've really had to put everything on hold, and totally devote. I mean, I was literally a full-time caregiver from the perspective. I mean, like, we're talking about bathing her, dressing her, my 22-year-old daughter. Now, to me, that's prosperity, because I didn't have to worry about being at a job. I didn't have to worry about, I'm going to get fired from my job because I'm not showing up. I was able to table anything that I had going on my schedule and push it off and totally put my focus with my daughter. That's prosperity. And it still comes back to mom care versus daycare, right? It still comes back to that same mindset, even though the goal of $800 has changed and that's shifted. It's still the same mindset of the priority is still about the family. The priority is still about my children, no matter what age they are. And so I feel very fortunate, very blessed, right, to be able to say that, because that right there, I mean, there's so many other moms that maybe their child's going through something. They don't have the luxury of being able to do that. Right.
Right.
So I think for me, that is the definition of prosperity.
I think that's an amazing, it comes down to freedom of choice to spend your time. And there's nothing more important and valuable to us than family, for sure. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's at the end of the day, that's what it's all about for me as well. If I'm curious, do you have or have you had any sort of morning rituals, evening rituals that, you get up in the morning, your feet hit the floor, and, I'm talking about when you were in the mode of building your businesses that kept you on track or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so this is a very interesting journey. And so, and I'm going to go back to, keep in mind that I was raised, West Texas, and I was raised, very blue collar family. Now I did go to college but it's interesting that I really don't feel like I got my life degree until I got out of college, and I will definitely say that network marketing is probably the best life skills degree that I could ever achieve. Right. And what I mean by that is because, I remember whenever we started in this business, I was always told, Jim Rohn. Now I was fortunate enough to be like in rooms with Jim Rohn and, on retreats with Jim Rohn and sit down and speak with him personally and have that kind of, role models that I was surrounded by. But, they always said, well, if you work harder on you than you do your business, the business always manifests. And I was like, what the heck are they talking about? Like what does that even mean? Right. But so, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to work on myself, but like, what am I doing? How do I work on myself? Right. I didn't know what that meant. And at the same time, I was going through a spiritual journey and so what I was finding is that whenever they would give me these business books to read, how it was paralleling with my Christian walk and my walk with the Lord, and how you're thinking and what are you thinking and what are you saying, and how all of the languages paralleled. And so one of the best books, and I still have it to this day, and I still refer to it to this day. It's a book by Joyce Meyer, and the name of the book was Me and My Big Mouth. The answer is right under your nose. And I was so attracted to that book because I was like, my mouth was always getting me into trouble because I'm very black and white. I'm very outspoken. I'm very, out there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my book. And I started reading it and I couldn't put it down. And it was so amazing because it was one of those things that I'm like going, now I can really think about what I'm thinking about. I can think about, and I started going in this journey of like, whatever I'm putting in my brain, it's coming out of my mouth. And so I was able to connect those dots in such a way that it really, it started a foundation for me that I started my morning from the perspective of getting my thoughts straight, of renewing my mind, of going through a process and going through a journey like of what I'm putting in here is what's ultimately going to be coming out of here. And your thoughts becoming words, and your words becoming your action, and your action becoming your habits, and your habits becoming your character, and your character becoming your destiny. all of those things started lining up and started manifesting. And so for me, Terry, is like, and trust me whenever I say, I mean, like, if I wouldn't have had that kind of training and rearing and having an understanding of the scripture, because the scripture for me is the absolute truth. And so I started using that in aligning myself and aligning my thoughts with that, and really speaking out loud, because you can't fight a thought with a thought.
Right.
And I learned this, and it was very powerful for me, because I'm like going, okay, I can't fight a thought with a thought, right? You can only fight a thought with a spoken word. And so I learned this early age that I started speaking the scripture out. I started speaking about the word out loud so my heart could hear it. So it went from here, but it actually penetrated here. And so, you know, because I mean, I'm a strong believer, but where it came from is that scripture, faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word. And so
was that a pattern? So you got up in the morning, did you do like, did you have like a routine for the first 30 minutes you studied your personal development, your scripture? What took place in that first maybe hour or two when you just woke up in terms of a routine?
Yeah, well, whenever I first, obviously, I mean, whenever I get up, I mean, I have to have some sort of something, you know, I mean, like a little, I mean, like a little Vice coffee, whatever, to get the juices flowing. But for me, I started out with music first. And so it really kind of put me into this place to where I started writing out as I would listen to praise music, and I would start writing out the things that I was grateful for. Mm-hmm. And even if I was in a place to where, and trust me, there was been many, many dark places and many, many nights of tears on the pillow. And I mean, trust me, it hasn't all been a bed of roses, right? There's no question. But no matter what the set of circumstances, I called it the sacrifice of praise. Like, no matter what my set of circumstances, I always was thankful that it wasn't 1 degree worse, right? Because it could always be worse.
Yep.
And so I would always start out with what am I grateful for? What are the things that I'm grateful for? To the point, to even the littlest of things, of having running water, being able to take a hot bath. I mean, like, that sounds so maybe insignificant, but I mean, whenever that's something to be thankful for. So that's how I started. And then I would start going into, you know, reading the scriptures. Like I had personal, like I would take scriptures that were relevant to what I was going through. Like if I was really struggling with maybe unforgiveness, right? Or, you know, I had a conflict with someone, I would study the word that was really lined up with that in my thinking, that allowed me to get my thinking straight. And so, and those are the things that I would write down, and I wrote them down on Post-it notes, and I put them on my, you know, in my office. I put them on in my car, and it's the things that I would meditate on over and over. And whenever I say, not just in my mind, but speak them out loud. And so whenever the negativity would come in, and it always comes in no matter what, and even to this day, it is something that I practice this day, that I have my favorite things, my favorite scriptures, the ones that I hang on to that really resonate with me. And I say, you know what, that's not what I line up with. This is what I choose to line up with this in this moment. And going back to just being thankful and grateful for, and just praising where the good things that are happening in my life, and choosing to focus on those things. So, I mean, I was always taught, you know, what you focus on the longest becomes biggest. And so it's changed. And Larry and I, whenever we talk from, we call it an 80, 15, and 5 rule. And I don't know if you've heard us talk that before, Terry, but 80, 15, and 5, and one of our friends, Ron Henley, I don't know if you know him, but he deems it the Thompson rule. And we talk about this 80% of your business will be people that want to make an extra $500 to $1,000 a month, right? But 80, 15, and 5 becomes a different perspective whenever you think about it like this. And this is the way, whenever I've got something, and especially like a set of circumstances or maybe a relationship, what happens is that whenever you're in a relationship with someone or something or a company or whatever that is, 80% of that you absolutely love. Let's just say you and I were friends, and 80%, we're great friends, and 80% of our relationship I absolutely love, right? And there's 15% of that that's maybe a little questionable, like, I don't like it when Terry does this, that's kind of annoying, right? And then there's 5% that you're like, oh my gosh, that gets on my last nerve, right? And so what happens is, and this is with everything and with every subject matter, if you think about it, whenever you're in the 80%, you're in the love phase, right? You don't think about the 15 and 5. But what happens whenever you start to shift your focus and you start, if you do something that gets on my nerves that day, and I start to say, man, that's someone, he kind of does, he's been doing that a lot lately, right? I don't like it when he does that, so therefore you've shifted your focus off the things that you love and you're grateful for and you're thankful for to the things that you're kind of questioning, right? Mm-hmm. So your mindset's different. You think differently. I'm thinking differently about you because I'm thinking about the things that are kind of annoying to me, right? Well, then the next day you do that one thing that just gets on my absolute last nerve, right? And so I move out of the 15 and now I've shifted my focus on the 5. And so all I'm doing is just meditating on all the stuff that I'm so annoyed by you. And if you think about that, how many relationships have been destroyed? Or whether it's a relationship with a person or a company or your boss or whatever that is, because you're looking at the wrong thing. And so whenever we stay in practice of looking at the things that we're grateful and thankful for, no matter what the set of circumstances are, and it keeps you out of the 15 and the 5, even if you go briefly to the 5, if you just steer yourself back to the 80% that you love and why you chose to be in this relationship or why you chose to use this product or why you chose to join this company, it changes everything.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Let me ask you this question. Over the years, has there been a gift or a book that you find yourself sharing with people?
Yeah, it's that book.
Is
Me
it?
and My Big Mouth.
I got to get the book. I got to get the book.
You got to get the book, because here's the thing. I mean, if you think about it, if the answer is right underneath your nose, doesn't that apply to everything?
Yeah.
And it's so elementary in the way that she writes. And I don't know if you know anything about her. She's got an amazing, amazing testimonial that she was sexually abused by her father growing up. Her mom knew, and how God just totally transformed her and her life and used that of her life, and how he taught her to walk through that process. And so it's one of those things that I shared with you early on. I mean, because I walked through a very similar childhood circumstance and an abusive marriage situation. And so I always look at her and I'm like, wow, if she can overcome like that, I can too. And that's the way I see business. That's the way I see whenever you share stories. If they can, I can. If I can, you can.
Yeah, that's cool. Has there been a purchase for $100 or less in the last 6 months, Taylor, that has impacted your quality of life or your thinking in any way?
Oh, goodness. The Quality of life. That's a very interesting question. I mean, that's really kind of a loaded question, actually, because I'm a big advocate. I love to read, and I'm notorious for reading 3 to 4 books at the same time. Okay, so but I will say that I would say one book that really has had a huge impact on me outside of that one over in the last month is a book called Chase the Lion.
Mm.
And it's by and the concept of it is very powerful, because it's, you know, what it is it basically what it is that when people are in fear, right, they tend to run away from the things that they're afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And instead of facing them, and instead of facing them head on, they tend to run from them. And you know, I mean, you know, the analogy of fear, right? You know, false evidence appearing real. Most people know that. They've heard that before. And so they let it come into the place to where it's completely paralyzing, and they do nothing. And I think that's kind of the subject matter at the end of the day of what you're talking about, and what encapsulates this whole process of what you're doing here. Because whenever you know, especially as you age and you stuff and you get older, because we're talking about this place to where people go, okay, is this it? Is this the sum of my life? Is this all there is? I mean, is there hope? Can I do something differently? And the answer is yes. However, if you don't fear, and so the whole point of this book is that so basically, this is one of this is Obadiah, who was going to be the lead bodyguard for King David, right? And so he's in the forest. He's there, and he hears the lion, right? And the normal human response, knowing that there is a lion in the midst, there is a lion is going to come get you, right? You can picture this. He's sitting in the forest. He's sitting in the dark. It's cold. He's sitting by the fire, and he knows there's a lion in the midst that's hungry and that's wanting to come after him. But what does he do? Instead of running from the lion, he chases the lion down and he kills him. What a powerful analogy to anybody, to instead of letting that fear overtake them and run them down, to turn the tables on that fear and run that fear down and go after the thing that's causing you to be in fear, right? Mm-hmm. That would be the I mean, most people would take the path of least resistance, but he didn't. He chose not to. And I find that to be so powerful and encouraging at the same time, because it's not human nature to do it that way.
Let me ask you a question that might just parallel into this. Has there been a failure or mistake that you have made at some point that sets you up for later success?
Okay, we don't have enough time left today to cover all of those things, right? I mean, gosh, I mean, they're probably too numerous to account for.
Just one.
I mean, I would say, gosh, I mean, I would say God, probably the biggest one. I would say the biggest one for me, and this one is very personal. And it's really not business related, but it does play into the business, and it does play into who the person that I've become. Okay. And that's learning this. Is holding on to unforgiveness. And I'll use, and this particular story, it has to do with my father. And, you know, my father kidnapped me at gunpoint from my mom whenever I was 4 years old. And he kidnapped me, and my mom didn't know if I was dead or alive for almost a year of my life. And so I held my dad accountable to that all of my life. And I always questioned, like, why can't I be daddy's girl? Why can't I be like, you know, because I would look at other little girls. Why can't I be like, have a daddy like that, right? You know, and it was only after I had my own children, and there was a conversation that took place, and I'm at this point, I had just turned 40, and this conversation we're having, and it was like this whole reveal to me came, that I was holding my dad accountable to something that he never had the capacity for. That I held him to this unforgiveness, and I held him to a standard that he wasn't capable of making happen. He didn't have the capacity to hold for what the standard that I was holding him to. He just didn't. And I thought, wow, I have been holding him to something that he never had the capacity to do. And I've been angry with him, and I've been holding him captive to that. And whenever I let it go, and I'm like, Lord, I love him. I'm going to love him where he is. I'm going to love him right where he is. And it was so freeing for me. And it was so, and I never had this, and unfortunately, I never was able to have this conversation with him because he died a week later. He had a sudden heart attack and he died. But I was very happy to be able to go through that, because it was a life lesson for me that I've been able to take to my children with their own father, right? And walking in forgiveness and loving people where they are, and accepting the relationship for what it is, and not having an expectation, because expectation is the mother of disappointment. It is. Yep. And so for me, I would say that lesson carried over, because I held on to it for so long, but it's a life lesson that I've learned from greatly, that I've been able to pay forward and be able to relate to people on a whole different level, that, you know, don't hold people to standards that they're not capable of. I mean, you're always going to be let down, right? And so I think that's probably the forgiveness is a huge thing that a mistake that I wish I would have learned earlier. Earlier.
That's powerful. Thanks for sharing that. You talked a little bit earlier about meditation. How much is meditation and visualization played in your role of creating the quality of life and who you are today?
I would say pretty much. I mean, at the end of the day, I would say pretty much all of it. I mean, and the reason I say that is because you move in the direction of your most dominant thought. And I learned from Larry. I learned from, Larry was my mentor, but if you've ever heard of, he's known all over the world in this space as with the Millionaire Training. And the Millionaire Training is what I grew up with in this industry. And one of the things that he talked about was the mental projector. And in the mental projector, you can always tell what somebody's thinking and because of what shows up on their screen of life, right? And the most powerful thing about the mental projector is that you have the capacity to change what's on your screen.
Mm.
You do. Nobody else does. You do. And so whatever's showing up in your life, you have to evaluate, is it been on your screen too long? Have you been thinking about these things and now, now you become like this magnet. Now you're attracting all of these things that you've been thinking about and meditating on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I was very fortunate to learn how powerful your thoughts are and how what you're thinking about can show up in your life. And so the positive part of it is that if you don't like what's happening in your life, just change what's in the projector. Let something else show up differently. And so Larry and I talk about, and we were actually talking about this on our Wisdom Wednesday just today, because we do a teaching every Wednesday. We call it Wisdom Wednesday. And we were really literally talking about this very thing, that if you can just be 51%, right? One discipline affects the next discipline, right? And so you don't have to worry about and beat yourself up that your thoughts were in the trash can yesterday, but what are you thinking about right this minute? And if you can get through the minute with 31 seconds being on the positive end, you win, right? In the next hour, if it can be 31 minutes out of the 60, you win. And so it's one discipline affecting the next discipline, and it's not something that happens overnight. It's certainly something that you have to take control of, and you have to, it is a discipline. It really is. It really is.
So if somebody feels stuck financially, they want to build online, but they're overwhelmed. Maybe they've lost a husband or a wife. Maybe they're 50 or 60 years old. Maybe they think their best times are behind them. They think their projector is looking dim. What's one or two action items, Taylor, that they could implement relatively easily that would help them change that film?
Well, okay, so that's a really big, broad question. Well, first of all, you can say build online. I don't know. I would say in this space, I think that there's been a lot of hoopla, if you will, and a lot of people left dead on the side of the road, if you will, because I feel like our network marketing space has created such a divide for people in this arena that has made it seem like they're not good enough, that they don't have what it takes to be successful because they're not skilled in social media and they're not skilled in online marketing. And so I say something different, because at the end of the day, if you're in network marketing, if you're into business and you have a viable product or service, then Larry and I, we talk about it from a very easy track to run on, and we call it a use, talk, demo process. If you're using your product and service, right, and you find it of value, then you can talk. What are you going to talk about? You can talk about how it's impacted you. That's real simple to do. Anybody can do that if they believe in what their product or service is. And if they can demonstrate that, meaning whether it's taking the product or demonstrating a video or showing them a picture bigger than what they're just shared of themselves, anybody can do that concept, right? So it doesn't matter if you're online, you can do that offline, right? It only takes a little, it only takes some activity. See, the problem with, from my perspective, is that they've been beat up to think, I can't do that. I'm not good enough. But I'm here to tell you, you are good enough. You do have what it takes. If you've made it this far in life, you've got some self-discipline going on in your life, in some arena of your life. You've had some self-motivation in some arena of your life, or you wouldn't be sitting here. All it takes is to channel that same energy into something productive in an activity mode of sharing what you're excited about. And you don't have to be an online guru and spend all your time learning how to do that. Because if you can, let's just say, if you take this use talk demo concept and you go out and you get a new customer today, i.e. your neighbor, i.e. the waitress at the truck stop, whatever it is, and then you take it online and you share with your friends and family, oh my gosh, I just made $100. I just got a new customer and this is what happened to me. And they're like, what did you do? Right? So I didn't have to be a marketing guru or an online expert to be able to use social media and to use my online system. I just did what I know to do, and I leveraged it through technology, and anybody can do that. You don't have to know and you have to have any skills to do what I just said. But what it takes is just taking some action and moving towards that instead of analyzing it till you're paralyzed. And that's where the problem comes in, is that there's been so many people left on the side of the road thinking they're not good enough, and they're trying to spend all their time on how to becoming marketing gurus instead of just being good at telling your story. Because nobody can tell your story like you can. Okay. And if you can just be good at doing that and sharing it with other people offline and take it online, anybody can have success. And that's what I think. It's one win, celebrating one win, one discipline affecting another discipline. And it's that simple. Get out of your comfort zone. That's it.
And take some action. Let's shift the conversation to a couple of lighter topics. Let's say you had the ability to send everybody a text message tomorrow morning about prosperity and creating abundance in their life. What would that text message say?
Gosh, you're really putting me on the spot here. Let's see. What would that text message say? Well, I would probably say it like this. Now, are you talking about like a generic message, or are you talking about
everybody on the planet, and it's your tweet, if you will, 140 characters, something relatively short that will help them create more prosperity and abundance in their thinking?
Oh gosh. Well, here's the thing. I always come back to Jim Rohn at the end of the day. I really do come back to Jim Rohn. Because this was one of the, this thing always, it just always rings in my mind, especially, whenever I'm faced with something, right? And so I think whenever I think about any kind of challenges, or kind of think about if I'm stuck, for things to change, you got to change. And for things to get better, you got to get better. And so that would probably be my encouragement, because at the end of the day, everybody has to look in the mirror. And it's, because it's never about what other people have done to you or for you. At the end of the day, how are you going to respond? And because you are the only one that you have control over. You are the only one that has power over whether you're going to change or not change. And so, because a lot of times people want to change their set of circumstances, they want to change the people in their life, and they want to change this and change that, whenever that's not realistic. The only person that you can change in any of those equations comes down to you. Mm-hmm. And so that would be the challenging thing that I would, because that's thought provoking. For things to change, if you want your life to be different, for things to change, you got to change. If you want things to get better, then you got to get better. You got to do something different. So I would say that would be the thing that I would tell everybody.
I love it. I love it. Okay, here's a fun question for you. Do you have an unusual habit or thing that you love?
Do I have an unusual habit or thing that I love? Well, okay, so we have 6 dogs. So we are quite animal lovers. I mean, like crazy animal lovers, like all 5 of my dogs sleep with Larry and I. How about that? That's very personal, but we have all 5 of our dogs sleep with us. The 6th dog is my daughter's, but 5 of them sleep with us. So, I mean, I think a lot of people think that we're really kind of crazy whenever we talk about our dogs, but they're like my babies. They're like my family. Like,
what kind of dogs? You have to share that.
Okay, so we have.
And I'm like, how big a bed do you guys have?
Yeah. No, so we have 2 schnauzers, and so they're like 18 pounds a piece. Mm-hmm. And then we have 2 Yorkies, which they're 5 pounds a piece. Mm-hmm. And then I have a little half Pom, half Yorkie, and she's 3 pounds. So, I mean, that's like the size of one big dog, right? If you think about it, so, the size of a lab, right? Yeah. And, but yes, we're quite the dog family. Now, the 6th dog is one that we actually, she's like 45 pounds. She's like a lab. But she was, we rescued her. She had been hit on the side of the road. Somebody had hit her, and and we grabbed her up and took her in and had her surgically repaired. And now she's like part of the family. It's just so I don't know if that answers your question, but
that's a perfect question. That's a perfect question. Did you have a mantra or something that you have repeated to yourself over and over the years as you were building your business that really helped you stay in your lane?
Well, outside of for things to change, you got to change. I mean, that one's always been a huge one for me. For my, probably this one is really big for me too, because lots of times, people, you always hear this, okay, if your why has to be big enough to make you cry, and, all of this, this kind of stuff. And I think for me, that's kind of true to some degree, because you can have a really big why, but no desire behind it. I mean, whenever you talk, I want you to think about it. I mean, and people, distributors in fact make this mistake. And that is this, is that I could be talking to you and you're getting your house repossessed. You're in foreclosure right now. And you probably need this opportunity more than anybody else that I know of in my sphere, right? And I'm having this conversation with you. But at the end of the day, so you have a pretty big why, right? But how many times have we seen people say, oh, okay, they got a big why, but then they choose to walk away from the opportunity. They choose not to do anything about it. It's because they don't have a desire. The desire isn't strong enough. They're not willing to do what it takes to make a difference. For things to change, you got to change, right? I mean, there's no willingness behind that, even though the why is big enough. So the why, I mean, you have a big enough why that would make you cry. Would you agree? So that's not necessarily the answer, right?
So what's that mantra?
So the mantra is this: whenever the promise is clear, the price is easy. So see, because I mean, if you think about it like this, if your house is in foreclosure, you got a big why. But see, if the promise wasn't clear to you, if you don't see, I can do this, right? If you don't have believability that you can do what I've done, if you don't believe that you can do this business too, or that you can be a success in this business too, then the price isn't easy, right?
Right.
That's what it comes down to. So I would say that would be my mantra. I mean, everybody goes to the why, but I think it's deeper. I think it's different than that. And I think a lot of people have been kind of duped into thinking it does come down to that, you know, and I don't think that that's necessarily the case.
Right. So I just have to say, Taylor, you're amazing. I just love your energy. I just love where you come from and where your heart is. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom and your experiences. If somebody wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Okay, so they can connect with me definitely on Facebook. So we have Larry and Taylor. We have a fan page, a business page that we do Wisdom Wednesdays on. I'm certainly open to Messenger, but it's Taylor Thompson. If they want to reach out to email, it's taylor@larryandtaylor.com. We have a website, so it's larryandtaylor.com. So we're pretty easily reached. And, you know, I'm putting together, just so you know, Terry, I don't know by the time that you get this, you know, this information goes out, I'm going to be launching a women's group that's generic women's group. So definitely if you're a woman and you're seeing this, definitely reach out to me and find out what the status of that is. I would love to connect with you because, you know, we all want to make a difference. We all want to have an impact. We all want to play our part in changing and helping somebody's life and to raise them up. And the best way that I know how to do that is empowering other women and empowering them to believe in themselves that if I can do it, you can do it. And so I'm super excited about it.
Well, that sounds exciting. We'll definitely have to stay tuned and watch out for that. Thank you again, Taylor, for your time and your wisdom. My friend watching this, I know you got a ton of value out of this interview. She's an amazing woman, a champion for our industry, and definitely follow her advice and take some action. I appreciate you being part of our tribe. I appreciate you being on this journey with us. If you want to learn more about this interview and other interviews, just go to terrypetrovick.com/mentors. Remember this, my friend, you have a choice. Make it a better than terrific day and a prosperous one, because you absolutely deserve it. Until next time, bye-bye for now.